For a long time, there has existed a conspiracy to get rid of the soul by replacing ancient wisdom with modern materialism and telling you that you are nothing more than molecules, neurons, and chemical reactions. They have been quietly working against your very being. Many of the tools used in this plan to get rid of the soul are the very things we're told are meant to keep us healthy. Let's dig into this because history, prophecy, and our present moment might be more connected than we think. Modern medicine is the new kid in school in terms of medicine. It's the new kid in school that thinks it knows everything. It's the elitist bully, if you will. It objectifies you. It doesn't see you as a whole being. It sees parts, a liver, a brain, a blood level. Depression, that's just serotonin. Anxiety, just an overactive amygdala. The great mysteries of the spirit realm and human suffering are reduced to chemical imbalances to be adjusted with a pill. Thomas Szasz, in The Myth of Mental Illness, makes a nuanced point. He says, Freud did not discover that hysteria was a mental illness. He merely asserted and advocated that so-called hysterics be declared ill. The adjectives mental, emotional, and neurotic are semantic strategies to codify. The American medical and psychiatric systems are mere expansions of philosophy. And 1 Corinthians 1:20, did it not ask, where is the philosopher? Where is the scholar? Where is the debater of this age? Has Yah not exposed the foolishness of this world's wisdom? Thomas Szasz goes on to say, what constitutes disease have been changed, from the physiochemical derangement of the body to the disability and suffering of the person. This is why today people call addiction a disease, but calling it such is based on this changing of the definition of disease. And ultimately, it's meant to prolong the suffering of the individual, in this case, the addict. Think about it. When you tell someone they have a disease and that there is no cure, or you coddle them and enable them, do you think they're going to find it easy to emerge from their suffering? Of course not. Labeling addiction as a disease isn't for the benefit of the addict. It's for the benefit of politicians and big pharma. Reducing humans to biology and their sufferings and sins to disease becomes dangerous. Because once you strip away the soul, all that's left is machinery to be managed. And in the case of the addict, the homeless addict in particular, is that not what they are doing? Especially with these so-called safe injection sites. I think the image of an addict is spot on for this point about there being a conspiracy to get rid of the soul for two reasons. One, drugs, whether from the street pharmacist or the corporate pharmacist, are destroying souls. And two, changing the definition of disease to where it views addiction as a disease enables addicts to perpetuate that very disease, a disease that destroys the soul. Rudolf Steiner, the Austrian philosopher and mystic, gave a lecture in 1917 where he said there would come a time when thinking in terms of spirit and soul would be considered pathological. That means if you believe you are more than flesh and blood, you'll be treated as if you are sick. Believing in the spirit realm would be a disease. Merriam-Webster defines disease as follows: a condition of the living animal or plant body or of one of its parts that impairs normal functioning and is typically manifested by distinguishing signs and symptoms. The issue with this definition is you would have to have a set marker for what is normal. And to the atheist, for example, belief in the spirit and soul is not normal. Beyond that, though, what is normal for one race or gender is not always normal for the next. Kind of like the safe and effectives. The notion that they are safe and effective for all is a lie. Poland et al. Writes, vaccines licensed in the USA are safe and effective. However, not every vaccine is equally safe or effective in every person. Rudolf Steiner mentioned that physicians would be asked to develop a vaccine that would drive the souls out of humanity. He said, in the future, we will eliminate the soul with medicine, under the pretext of a healthy point of view. There will be a vaccine, and people will be inoculated so that they do not develop the foolish idea of soul and spirit. Imagine that, medicine not as healing, but as a tool to sever our connection to spirit. We live in a society where talking about the soul is unscientific or not scientifically proven, where spirituality is treated like a personal hobby rather than the essence of human life. Steiner foresaw a future where materialism was not just dominant, but weaponized. But here's the thing. Ancient traditions didn't separate the soul from the body the way we do today. They believed the soul had dwelling places in the body, and one of those places was the bones. In the book of Ezekiel, it says, "Thus saith Yahuwah unto these bones, Behold, I will cause breath to enter into you, and you shall live, and you shall know that I am the Most High." In Hebrew thought, the bones carried memory and vitality. That's why Joseph in the book of Genesis made the Israelites swear to carry his bones to the promised land. The bones mattered. They carried identity and soul force. Even outside of the Bible, traditions worldwide saw bone marrow as sacred, the birthplace of blood, the wellspring of life. In a research paper titled Stem Cell Basics, it says that hematopoietic stem cells in bone marrow produce blood and immune cells, carrying genetic and even epigenetic memory. And if that's true, then what happens when medicine reaches into the marrow, altering immunity, memory, and even generational inheritance? Could this be one way of reaching into the very place where body and soul intersect? Steiner's warning wasn't just about vaccines or medicine. It was about the philosophy of materialism. Materialism says the only real things are physical. Consciousness is just brain waves. Love, just hormones. And spirit, an illusion. Francis Crick, who is a Nobel Prize winning scientist, said in 1994, "You, your joys and your sorrows, your memories and your ambitions are in fact no more than the behavior of a vast assembly of nerve cells." And when a culture fully accepts that, what happens? You have schools that allow children to be taught they are just evolved apes. You have deep suffering that's explained away as misfiring neurons. Spiritual experiences are pathologized. And we stop seeing ourselves as souls on a journey. We stop asking questions about eternity, meaning, or the Most High. And here's the key: a population that no longer believes it has a soul is far easier to control, contrary to the atheistic belief that God is controlling. No, when you believe yourself and other humans are the highest intelligence, you are easily controlled by people. So, why would there exist to be a conspiracy to erase the soul? Who benefits from that? Well, a soulless humanity doesn't resist. It doesn't rise up. It doesn't pray. It doesn't hope or dream. It doesn't see itself as accountable to a higher order, a higher being. Soulless humanity becomes a workforce, a consumer base, a programmable machine. For governments and corporations addicted to control, that is the perfect outcome. But let's look at some of the signs around us. There's transhumanism, the growing movement to merge human beings with machines. They think that they are upgrading the human in this manner. There is genetic editing. There's also pharmaceutical dependency. Every inner conflict, sadness, struggle, there's a pill for that. Suffering can actually be a teacher of the soul, but it gets silenced through pharmaceuticals. Remember King Hezekiah in the bitterness of his soul. His suffering, it taught him a lesson. It gained him Yah's mercy and a closer relationship with Yah. If he had pharmaceuticals to treat his illness and he gained a dependency on those pharmaceuticals, what would he have learned? And that's the point I'm making. They want you dependent on them, apart from the Creator. But aside from that, there is also uniform compliance. Systems of control that now label individuality, which is an expression of the soul, as dangerous. You must think the same, act the same, and comply the same. The public education system, for instance, everyone in grades K through 12 must learn the same things. Or even Black excellence, as it's called. This is threatening. It's threatening for some to see the soul of those that they want to oppress thrive. But there is a hopeful part, and that is that the soul is not so easily erased. You can, of course, give your soul away willingly, but even when ignored, suppressed, or medicated, the soul resists. It shows up in dreams, in poetry, and sudden moments of awe. It's your intuition, your conscience. You can feel it. And in a time like this, the greatest act of rebellion in this materialistic age is to nourish your soul by prayer, meditation, stillness, and truth. Stand up and speak of it, even though society tells you that it doesn't exist. If the soul wasn't so important, they wouldn't be so hard after it. So it's up to you to guard your soul. But that's all I have for you today. And if this video gave you something to think about, hit like, subscribe, comment, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that their soul matters. Take care.